Hi friends, Mindy here. I have a process video for you today. This is part 2 of my start to finish junk journal here that I started quite a while back, and I thought I had posted this video, and I realized as I was getting ready to do part 3 that I hadn't actually uploaded this section. So I am going to be working on the signatures and sewing them in today in part 2 of this video. So one of the things I get asked a lot about are the number of signatures, how you know how many signatures to do, how many pages to do in each signature. And really a lot of that just depends on what you're kind of doing. So I have already pulled out a bunch of pages. I have coffee dyed paper, vintage paper, ledger, book paper, all kinds of different pages in here. And I had made 3 signatures thinking that that was going to work. And as you could see, it was very, very full. I had basically too many pages in each of these signatures, and it was already causing the cover to kind of alligator mouth open. And I'm trying to avoid that, especially at the beginning, the onset of this journal, because by the time I go through and add pockets and tuck spots and tags and all the things that I like to add to a journal, it's just going to make it too fat and the cover will never close. So what I'm doing is I'm sort of going through and culling some of the papers that I have pulled out, rearranging my signatures, and I am going to have 3 sort of smaller signatures. You could do even, 5 signatures if you wanted. It really just depends on how many papers you're doing and how wide your spine is. The spine on this book isn't super huge. And so I feel like 3 signatures is going to be a good spacing, and once they get full, the journal will have, be nice and full without being like too thick. But I did pull out some of the heavier papers. I had some like file folders and stuff in there that were just too big for this signature, and so I pulled those out. I'll still put them in the journal probably when I get into the part where I'm decorating and adding the pockets. I will use those file folders especially as little pockets. And for right now, my pages are actually too long for the journal, so they're sticking out past the cover, which is also okay because I will trim those down or fold them over and create pockets and tuck spots as I am doing that aspect of the journal. So for right now, I just want to get them sewn in. And so the first thing that I need to do is create a little template in order to do this. And I am just using an old scrap of copy paper here, and I have my pencil, and I'm just kind of roughly eyeballing the size of my spine here. Just making sure that my little template is going to fit right down inside the spine on the inside of this journal. So I'm just trimming this down. I will have to kind of tweak this just a little bit. If you are a person that needs to measure this exactly, then by all means do that. Sometimes I just find that a little too fiddly. So I'm just kind of doing this the easy way. This is just the way that I do this. I went to trim this, and then my trimmer snagged the paper, so I ended up having to fix this a little bit here. I'm trying to do this mostly in real time-ish, but just due to how long it kind of takes. I did have this video at double speed, but I am trying to kind of keep in most of what I am doing here. So you can see me fiddling with my little template here just to get it to the right size. I want to make sure that when I close the cover that it just is nestled right down in there. So you could certainly measure this next part if you wanted to. This is kind of the cheater way. I just find it easier. So basically what I'm doing now is taking my template and I am folding it in half lengthwise. And this line is going to be where my center signature goes. And then I'm going to take each edge and fold these in to meet that center line. And this is going to pretty much evenly space my signatures. And so I'm marking the top of my template here so that I know, because I need to keep everything kind of in line. As I'm doing this, you can see I'm just folding this on into the center here. And I am going to actually go back through and mark this with my pencil just so you can see a little better. So everywhere that there is a fold line here, that's where I'm going to be sewing one of my signatures. And so, you could certainly take a ruler and divide this and do it that way. I just find the folding of it just to be easier. So now I'm taking it and I have folded it in half the opposite way. And everywhere that those intersections are is where I'm going to be punching a hole. So from the top and from the bottom, I want about, 3/4 of an inch, half an inch, somewhere in there. I'm not really too fussy about that. You can see I just kind of folded this back on itself and made the top and the bottom basically the same distance from the top and the bottom of the cover. And you can see where I have those intersections marked. That's where I'm going to be punching the holes. And you can see I have a T up at the top of this template. I'm keeping everything in order. So it's very important now that you keep your signatures in order, in the order that you want them sewn in. And I will actually go through and mark mine, but you also want to, punch them in the exact same place, because you may not have the template exact. And so when you're punching the cover separate from the signatures, you just want to make sure that you're keeping everything in the same order. So I'm pulling out all my supplies. I have a heavy duty awl. I have this like foam pad that I'm going to be punching the cover into. If you have an old book or an old dictionary, something like that, you could certainly use that, an old mouse pad, something just really to protect your surface. So I'm starting with the center holes, and I'm just punching these with my awl. I'm making sure that my template is lined up. I'm holding that in place. You could tape it down if you find it necessary, but I think just holding it is fine. Again, I'm only doing 3 signatures. It's not like I'm trying to do 12 or something like that. Excuse me. So it's pretty simple with the 3. So as you can see, I wrote a number 1 in that top right hand corner. That just lets me know that this is the first signature, and it also is going to, so that I'm making sure that I'm punching from the top and getting my template lined up. So I'm just going to go through my signature here, make sure I have everything the way that I want it, the direction that I want it. The paper's folded. I'm also trying to vary the height of those smaller pieces. So where I have those glassine envelopes or those kinds of things that are smaller, I need to make sure that I'm hitting 2 of the signature holes. And so I don't want to put it like right in the middle and only have it go through 1 thread. It just obviously won't stay. So you can see I numbered those lines 1, 2, and 3. They're going to correspond with my signature. I'm just going to go through now, and I put some clips on to hold everything in place. Now I'm going to be using a book cradle, but like, again, if you don't have a book cradle, just use an old book open to the center, and you'll have that same kind of gutter to work in. And all I'm doing is lining up. This is the first signature. So I have folded my paper so that first line is in the gutter of my signature there. And so I'm just going to go through now and punch those same holes. These are going to correspond with the holes that are in my cover. Now you can see I'm just making sure that I have those holes nice along the edge of the spine. And then now I'm going to move on to the second signature, which is the one in the middle. And here again, I'm just aligning my papers. I like to have some of those papers that are different sizes. I just think that adds a lot of interest to a junk journal, is to have different sizes and types of paper. But I want to vary those. So some of them I have, aligned at the top, and some of them at the bottom. I feel like it gives it more interest when you're actually flipping through the journal. So now I have moved to the second signature. I have folded my paper so that the middle line is what's down in the gutter of this when I'm punching. I did need to come back through and make just a little bit of a bigger hole on here. And I'm just keeping those clips in place, and I'm just setting this off to the side. Again, I wrote the number 2 on that signature, and then this is going to be my third signature. Here again, just making sure everything is nice and lined up before I actually punch my holes, particularly those little tiny pieces like the glassine envelopes. So I'm going to put my clips in place here and hold everything. I like to do this when this is actually in the book cradle, because I can push down into the gutter of it basically and make sure that everything is nice and tight. So just going through and making sure that I have all of my holes lined up, and now I can get rid of my book cradle. But like I said, if you don't have that, you can even do it without a book. Just kind of make sure that your holes are going into the very edge of the signature. So I'm going to be using a waxed linen thread for this. You could use embroidery floss or, whatever you want to use. I like waxed linen thread. It just glides through the signatures very easily. And for a 3-hole pamphlet stitch, which is what we're going to be doing today, you need about 2.5 lengths of the length of the height of your spine. I like to do mine a little bit longer just because I prefer to have a little bit extra thread to work with. I just find it easier. I know some people will actually just work right off the spool. I find that too fiddly for me personally. And so I don't mind having the longer pieces. And then again, I will trim them down or do kind of something later on. I may even add little beads or something to the bottom of the strings, just kind of depends. But so I like to keep my strings long, but that's kind of personal preference. So I have threaded my needle, and now I'm starting from the inside hole, or the middle hole on the inside, and I'm going to the outside of the signature here. And I'm just going to hold this in place with my thumb. You could certainly tuck that underneath the little binder clip or whatever if you wanted to. And then from the outside of the signature, I went up to the top. You can go to the bottom if you want. I just always prefer to go to the top for some reason. And then I'm coming back into the center of the signature on the inside. And now I'm going to drop all the way down to the bottom hole and go back out to the outside of my cover. And then from here, I'm going to come back inside, and I'm going to come through that middle hole. And it's just really important when you do this to make sure that your needle doesn't go through all of the threads that are already there. If you catch those threads, if you split those threads, then what's going to happen is when you try to tighten down your signature, you're not going to be able to pull it tight. And so you can kind of see that's really what happened here. I kind of had to redo that and had to pull my needle back out. It's not the end of the world. If it happens, you may have to restitch the signature, but it's really not the end of the world. But if you can prevent it, it just it does help. So I'm just kind of wiggling that through there, making sure my threads are good. And then I'm going to pull these threads to tighten everything up, but you want to do it in the same direction that you're sewing. So basically toward the top and the bottom of the spine. And that's just going to pull everything nice and tight without tearing your paper, especially some of those more fragile antique papers and those kinds of things. So, and then I'm making sure that the tails of these threads are on either side of that long piece that's running down the center. And then I'm just going to tie a knot basically over that. And then I'm going to leave my threads long. Now, you could certainly tie it in a bow. You could trim them off and tuck them under if you want to, however you want to do that. So once I have that first signature, which is actually signature number 3, because I'm working from the back to front, I just find that to be much easier when I'm sewing in signatures. So I have my third signature sewn in now, and I just used those clips, and I'm just clipped it to the back cover just to kind of keep it out of my way. This is just the way that I have found it to be easiest when I'm sewing in the signatures. I just find it easier to have that one kind of in the back. I know some people like to work front to back. For me, for whatever reason, I just prefer going back to front. And we just do the same entire process again. So I started from the middle and went to the outside. Then I came back in through that top hole. I'm going all the way down to the bottom hole now. And then I will come back in through the middle section again, just being careful not to split those threads here. And so just lining everything up, and it just, it takes just a second to make sure that you haven't, split those threads. And like I said, it's not the end of the world if you do it. It just, you'll know as soon as you've done it, because you won't be able to tighten down down the signature. So I just want to make sure as I'm doing this, I have my threads on either side of that long stitch, and just making sure that everything is nice and tight on the outside before I tie my knot here. And then again, I'm just going to leave my threads hanging. I will even all of those up once I've gotten my third signature in, but you can see I just moved that clip over, held everything in place. I'm not making you watch me do the third signature, but I did sew that in the same exact way. And now I'm going to pull all those clips off, and I will trim down my threads just so that they're roughly the same length, but I still have them kind of hanging long. And I do have the edges of my paper still wider than my actual cover, but I will fix that as I'm working on the journal. As I'm creating pockets and those kinds of things, I may want to fold some of these papers over and make tuck spots and that kind of stuff. And so that's why I left them long for now. And then here, like this glassine envelope, I may cut on the side or may cut on the top to open up that envelope so I have a little pocket to use. And you can just see the variety of papers that I have in here. Some coffee dyed, some vintage planner pages. I have a little book paper. I have some, this is just a little envelope that I had. I have some vintage ledger in here, just all kinds of different things. So I'm just going to do a quick flip so you can kind of see some of my ideas for how we're going to be doing this. I have that little section that flips out. And then there will be part 3 of this where we go through and sort of make the pockets and tuck spots and add some things to decorate this particular journal. So if you liked this video, I would really appreciate it if you gave it a thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And until next time, bye.